All right, hi guys. It's day 11, our last week of summer school. So this is block one, and we're getting started with our statistics unit here. So it will be very different than the stuff we've been doing the last 2 weeks. Today's just kind of intro. We're going to talk about categorical versus quantitative data. The unfortunate thing here is we would be collecting a lot of data as a class if we were in school together. So we'll be looking at some given data instead of collecting it ourselves. But let's take a look here at an example survey. We're going to use this survey to talk through some vocab. So here's an example of a survey that I might have given you if we were together, asking about your height, shoe size, how many text messages you send a day, how long does it take you to get ready in the morning, how do you typically get to school, like do you walk, take the bus, drive a car, whatever, and what is your favorite color. So we're going to use that survey to look through some different vocab terms. So let's start with categorical data. Okay, so the big idea today is the difference between categorical and quantitative. When I see the word categorical, I see category in that word. So it's data that's literally placed into categories. There are no units, but instead we're counting the number of things that fall into that. So when I'm looking at that survey, which data from the survey would be considered categorical, those would be basically things that are not number answers. So when I ask you the question and you tell me your answer, you're not giving me a number. So from that survey, that would be number 5, question 5, and question 6. Remember, question 5 was how do you get to school? So your answer would not be a number. It'd be things like walking, driving, bus, friend, whatever. And number 6 was about your favorite color. Again, your answer is not a number. Okay. On the other hand, we have quantitative data. So that's where we have numerical answers, numbers. So quantitative means numbers. And there are units for these. So inches, feet, miles, seconds, things like that. So when we're looking at what would be considered quantitative, that would be everything else. So number 1 through number 4, right? I'm asking you what's your shoe size? Your answer is a number. What's your height? How many text messages? Anything where the answer is a number would be considered quantitative. All right, next up we have frequency. That's how many times an event occurs, right? So if I'm counting the different ways you guys all get to school and 10 of you say you take the bus, the frequency would be 10. The relative frequency would be how many times that event occurs divided by the total number of outcomes. So let's say, for example, 3 out of the 10 of you walk to school. That means 3 divided by 10, 0.3, but as a percentage, 30% of you, right, we move it 2 places to the left, the decimal point, 30% of you walk to school. That's our relative frequency, okay? All right, so with that in mind, we have some different graphs that we use depending on the data. So if we're looking at categorical data, remember that's answers that are words, not numbers, we represent that data in pie charts or a bar graph. And sometimes we might use a segmented bar graph. We won't really do much with this in this class. We'll use the first two a little bit more. That just means where you're comparing multiple totals, stacking them on top of each other. So you might have like 2 bars like this, and then another total on top. So maybe you're comparing the answers between like men and women of something. So we don't really make those. We make the first two a little bit more. We don't even do that much with categorical data. We're mostly focused on quantitative. So quantitative, again, is numerical answers. Our charts here would be dot plots, histograms, stem and leaf, and then a box plot. Now you might not know what all of these are, what any of them are, that's totally fine. Hopefully you know pie chart and bar graph. The ones that we're going to focus on in this class are histograms and box plots. You might see dot plots a little bit. We're going to look at some, I think, in this lesson. We're not really going to make them. They're super, super easy. But histograms and box plots we spend a lot of time on. Stem and leaf plots, don't worry too much about those, but they are another type. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So here we're just classifying each as either categorical or quantitative. So I'm going to put a C for categorical or a Q for quantitative. So I'll do a couple together and then you'll do some on your own. So breed of horse. To figure out what type of data, think of possible answers. Now I don't know breeds of horses, but maybe I know like breeds of dogs, and that's kind of similar. So like Labradoodle, Border Collie, things like that. Those are not numbers, so that tells me it's categorical data. Question B, number of text messages sent. Maybe you sent 10, maybe you sent 30. Those are number answers, clearly quantitative. Okay. The last one, the show company, I think we're talking like, I don't know, maybe like a Broadway show company or like a TV show company, whatever you want to think of it as. But you guys can try the rest of those on your own and then we'll go through them together. All right, here's the rest of my answers. They actually ended up just alternating each answer between categorical and quantitative. So anytime your answer to the question or the statement is a number, it's quantitative. If it's not a number, if it's a word, it's categorical. Okay, so take a look, see if your answers match mine. All right, next example. So now we're going to take a look at some graphical displays. So example 2, use the graphs to answer the question. So this first one clearly here is a pie chart. And let's take a look at what we have. So I might label it. I mean, hopefully you recognize it's a pie chart. So this is about trip expenses when you're going on vacation or something, how much money you're spending on different categories, different things. So what are the two biggest expenses? Well, clearly I can use my visual to look for the biggest pieces. That looks like number 2 and number 4 here. So the colors would match up. The blue is hotel and the yellow would be travel. Okay, and then which two expenses combined equal the cost of the hotel? So the hotel is 25% of your total costs. So I'm looking for two other expenses that equal 25. Sorry, I have to kind of scroll back up here. Let's see. So when I look at my chart, I can do this visually or numerically. I have the percentages on the outside. It looks like these two guys combined make up the same amount of space as my hotel. So that would be the food. Oops, sorry. And pink is the tickets. Together, each one is 12.5. Together, that does get me 25%. Okay. Our next chart here is about favorite types of movies. So since this is categorical data, this is a bar graph. Okay. What is the most popular type of movie? Pretty straightforward here. That would be romance, because that's our highest bar. Which two types of movies are equally popular? So the two that have the same amount would be comedy and sci-fi. Both of those had 4 responses. Okay, pretty simple today. Next up, we're going to look at a couple of other types of graphs. So this next one might look familiar, but I'm not sure if you're thinking of the right thing. It says use the graphs to answer the questions. This first one, do you see how the bars are touching? That means this guy is a histogram. Oops, sorry. Histogram. Not a bar graph. It is something different. Okay, we're going to learn how to make these in this unit. It's a histogram because it's representing quantitative data, meaning numerical data or numbers, not categories. Okay, this is about exam scores. So each bar is a range of score, so like from 0 to 10, and then the number on the left means one person scored between 0 and 10. So when I look at the first questions, how many scores are between 80 and 100? So I find 80 to 100, that would be these two bars together. From 80 to 90, 2 people scored there, looking at the frequency. 90 to 100, only 1 person. 2 plus 1, 3 total people scored between 80 and 100. And then which scores appear the least? The least would be our lowest one, so 0 to 10. The range, right? You give the whole range, starting at 0, ending at 10. And the other one, 90 to 100. Those are both only had 1 person. The most is going to be our tallest bar here. I don't want to say bar because it's not a bar graph. That would be 5 people, but they scored from 40 to 50. So we're looking for the score, not really care about the frequency for that question. This next one is a dot plot. So each dot represents somebody that answered with the number on the bottom. So it's about number of children in the family. So when I look at this, this means that 3 families have only 1 child. Okay? So how many families have 2 children? So that's this one. So I'm going to count the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 families have only 2 children. And what is the most common family size? So that means the highest, the most dots, right? The most people answered. That would be 3 children. It had the most dots on top of it. Remember, dot is somebody saying, oh yeah, I have 3 kids, or I have 4 kids. Okay. Let's look at a stem and leaf plot. We're not going to make these ones. We're just going to look at them here. Sorry. This is, again, about test scores. So the way this type of graph works, you put the left and the right side together to get a number. So the stem is like the tens place in this case, and then each digit over here is the ones place. So you can look at the key to see that. So if it's 5 and then the bar 2, that means your score is 52. So for example, 9 and then the 3 here would be 1 person scored 93. Since I have another 3, again, that's 93, right? I could list them all out. So the highest score, the 9s are going to be the highest, and the highest one in the 9s would be 96. The lowest score would be somewhere down here. Lowest stem, lowest leaf, 52. The most common score, you're looking for the most frequent digit. So I see this big group of 8s right here. Here's my tens place, 68. Happened 4 times. Not very good. And then how many tests were taken? So I can figure that out by counting everything on the leaf side, because each of these represents 1 score. 90, 90, 91, 92, 93, 93, 94, 95, 96, and I could keep going. I'll save you guys the time of counting each of these digits. There are 32. We're not going to look too much more at these, so don't worry too much about the stem and leaf plot for that.